they feel like they need to switch it up because they are that unfavored.
We're about to find out. Where do we land for game number 4? It is going to be Cursed Hollow, picked by Ballistics of all team. Ooh, baby, it just gets better and better as this series goes on.
Take your notebook back out because we're going to need some stats here.
Oh, the main reason I personally love the fact that Ballistics is willing to be able to pick up this is just because that has seemed to be the, you know, next accepted post Tomb of the Spider Queen era. Europe is just slightly better than Korea map, but Ballistics is also, generally speaking, because KSV is generally the team out of Korea that is struggling on this map, they're one of the best at it, you know, because conveniently enough, when KSV Black is so good at team fighting, Ballistics, to keep up with them, is very, very good on a macro front, and this is a map that will accent this. So it's just a huge call out, not only within regional strength, but also, you know, looking at this matchup between the two teams. It's amazing.
Really fun to note that Ballistics has not played a single game on Cursed Hollow yet in all of this tournament. Diggs played 1. Lost to KSV, but you're right, in league play, Ballistics was only able to get a win on Cursed Hollow versus KSV in the last time that they played in league play. And that was a weird game. It was like triple support versus double support Tyrael, so it got a little hairy, but one thing to note here is that Tassadar open.
Which could lead to that young man on the screen right there, Tracer later on, but it's not a snap picked up for Dignitas. Considering if they want Genji. If we don't see a Genji, we don't see a Tassadar, what, in fact, could it be? I'm going to be honest, I want to hate a first pick Tyrael. But didn't you do that? I mean, Ballistics just picked Zeratul, and this was maybe Zeratul's better map. You know, if you thought he was good on Shrines, he's pretty darn good on the goal Cursed Hollow.
Is Dahaka that much of nah. Maybe here, though, for Ballistics. Just because both teams are so focusing on him, and he does have that global, and it is a larger battleground.
That's a good point. You know, maybe try and get that choke.
And they banned Abathur.
And like in the last series when we saw KSV able to get the win over Fnatic, it was purely with heavy focus of just saying, well, we're going to take almost every global away from you. So maybe Dignitas, again, fearful of those regional trends that we've seen even today on this current patch. What can they take from that? But they're going to stick to the team fight. There's that Dahaka you were talking about, and the Lucio for Ballistics going to add to the transitions. Not a surprise to see him picked up here. I feel like I want to see the 2-3 out of Dig to have a punch here. They've stuck to the generic kind of offensive Genji, but now I want to see... I feel like it is very much that they have to commit to the Tyrael, but then what beyond that point? Tyrael are this, but that doesn't... It doesn't feel like it adds up to what they might want to make happen. And dare I say it, do you ban the Zeratul if you pick the Tyrael?
Do they get their second reset hero this far up?
I personally feel like if you commit to a double reset too fast, it is rather punishable, especially with the team as fluid in drafting in the secondary slot like Ballistics has been. I mean, I think it's fair to say at this point they're the only team that is willing to give you the old bamboozle in the last pick, and it's just you have no response to it at that point.
Tyrael Greymane. That's pretty cool. They have Greymane and Genji. They have Tyrael, who enables both of them.
This has to be a Zeratul ban, I feel. It has to be. On the side of Team Dignitas, excuse me, not for Ballistics, just because committing to that Tyrael...
I almost think it's going to be some sort of ranged assassin if they're that focused. But yeah, Zeratul, Ballistics has proven that they can not only play heavy melee comps, but the Zeratul works still.
And it's a way better situation for him considering the map, transitions, what he can make happen. If you thought catching out Snitch, that amazing teamfight play was a really cool thing that you saw. The map of Cursed Hollow is literally built to see those type of rotations for that Zeratul to kind of shark around, find them out and isolated. Ballistics really taking their time, though, to consider what they want to end up ridding of. 3 seconds out, and it's going to be Uther.
All right. Not the same availability for Dig that they had last time, trying to get the Sanctification and then Divine Shield as enabling through a team fight. There's the swap on the normal bans for Dig. Abathur first and then Tass. That's not what I thought it would be. But I don't know what I for sure. I like kind of thought maybe Li Ming, but then you leave yourself open to a new Barak.
One hero that we haven't talked too much about, and I don't think he necessarily has to show up, but there's a stronger argument here than there has been in a hot minute, has got to be Falstad. Into the Tyrael, global pressure, boss control in itself. It's not a counter to Tyrael, but it is a very good. Your Sanctification is almost never going to get as much value as you would like it to unless you make a pretty big misplay as the Falstad player in that situation. Outside of boss baits and must-have team fights, which then it's kind of to each their own who gets the better trade there.
I'd be a little scared from the Genji.
I mean, okay, so yes, there is the problem of a heavy amount of dive available for Team Dignitas, which normally you don't want when you have that Falstad.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out if we don't see too much concern and we see a different variation than maybe that Zeratul, what would it be? Instead of Murden and a Vala pickup for Ballistics.
It really makes me think that we're going to get
double
SDE's second support.
Yeah, into like an Ariel. Not the draft decisions I would have expected out of Ballistics in this type of situation either.
If they can sustain through the Sanctification and the double dive, there's no secondary invulnerability from Uther now. What support do Dig get here?
I've been trying to rack my brain on that. Once you're rid of the Uther, the next immediate standout is got to be Rhaegar, even post-nerf on a map like this. He can help the rotate. Oh, I forgot about the old Brightwing. That's a good call to pick that one up, pair it with the Genji. But it will... Talking about the art of sustain, that puts so much more on the world of Tyrael's shoulders now that we see this solo support Brightwing. So much so that I feel like... I don't know what the pick is, but if it's well thought, I feel like there's one pick remaining left in this draft that Ballistics could lock in and you just go, that's it. To deal with this Brightwing. Because this is all offense. Everything Dignitas is drafted is when the fight starts, this is it. So much so, like, do you just snap Zeratul again?
It's either a, I would guess it's either a second support so that Cocoon doesn't take out all the supporting power. Or maybe the Zeratul?
I honestly, at first I didn't want to see the Zeratul, but once I saw Dignitas all in on that kind of thought process, it still is pretty darn effective at what it wants to make happen. Brightwing, well, yeah, be problematic when it comes to the early skirmishes, especially 1 through 9.
Yeah,
there it is.
She gives vision and,
I feel like Dig had to be trying to bait that. There's so many picks that are just like, the fight has to happen now, that Dig knew that this was going to happen. Again, because once you... I mean, it was so much so that I was wondering if Dignitas would be willing to ban the Zeratul into the secondary ban phase. Then if you look at their last 2 picks, Brightwing has to start the fight. She's a solo support Brightwing, right? So she has to start the fight in a very specific way in order to dominate over that fight.
They have it, though. They have Genji.
They do. But if Zeratul's just hiding at all or just not revealed at all and hits that moment to hit a void, or at least you force a little bit of pressure out to the point where you can get that Sanctification drop, it's going to look uglier than we saw in case number 1.
Yeah.
But if Dignitas is successful, maybe the Zeratul just looks funny because he's just dead before the team fight's even opening up. There is that, you know, Genji, peekaboo, polymorph play potential. But, I mean, did you watch SC's reaction time on that void last game? The guy doesn't mess around.
This is Aelia's first Brightwing, too. There's a lot of questions to ask.
When you talk about the 5% nerf, you know which support...
Brightwing.
Yeah.
She was hit very hard.
If you didn't think you had a hard enough time surviving on the Brightwing before, you just got about exactly 5% hard.
Right, because you have the damage reduction of Arcane Flare and Emerald Wind, but also Blink Heal, Soothing Mist, and the big deal is Phase Shield. The shielding there was even nerfed by 5%. Unstable Anomaly, too. I mean, come on. I also, you know what, Dread, I was going to bring that up earlier, and then I was like, people say I'm so Brightwing favored that they're just going to say that it's just me, Gilly, complaining about Brightwing nerfs, which is fair, I guess. I do kind of like Brightwing, and that's fine, but she did get hit pretty hard.
She did. You know, as a guy who's the first to talk down on Brightwing whenever possible, I feel like it's only gotten a little bit harder to be able to uphold. You know, I feel like maybe the Unstable Anomaly nerf a little bit too far. That was a breaking point. Not really, as that talent kind of fell out of meta long time ago. But I agree. She's gotten a lot harder. I feel like out of all the support nerfs, I look at her and I just kind of go, I already had such a hard time holding my own in this meta. How do I do it now, you know? And post 13, I've got to pop my ice block that much earlier to be able to keep myself alive.
Here's the thing, though. It wasn't just a Brightwing. It was Brightwing and a new Barak that was picked. And Ballistics still committed to the solo support of Lucio, right?
Yes.
So between the Brightwing bomb of Emerald Wind going in for either Tyrael or Genji, someone diving in, and then having likely a new Barak to either, I would guess, cocoon Zeratul so that they can't get the Void the way they would want, or Lucio.
Yeah.
If they find the target off of that. If Lucio's cocooned and the members of Dig aren't in a favorable Void Prison place, I don't see how Vala lives.
It's a really good point that you bring up, because Peekaboo is, even though it shows a pulsing reveal, it's actually 100% uptime.
Yeah.
And it's one of the longest reveal points. Actually, it is now in the game, since Farsight and Clairvoyance, rip in pieces, disappeared long ago. Well, you know what? We'll talk a little bit more in the game on how these interactions, these team fights kind of may unfold, because it is interesting that Dignitas may have enough anti-Zeratul tools to where the Zeratul didn't matter in the first place.
Team Dignitas, their life on the line. Snitch on Genji, JPL, New Barak, Wubby, Tyrael, Poik, playing Greymane, and Zalia playing Brightwing.
My goodness, she's got fastest words in the West over here. Gillyweed, SDE on Vala, SE on Zeratul, Jungha playing that Dahaka, Hooligan on Murden, and Magi on Lucio. In the red, it is going to be Ballistics. So let's just jump right into it, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of action in this game, knowing how offensive the comp Dignitas got it, and with the Zeratul on the other side. The biggest thing is that it's got the 100% uptime reveal on Peekaboo whenever it's used within a certain area, but it means that where the Peekaboo point actually is very, very important, because Zeratul has no opportunity to be able to move in, and you are very much right that it would force the cocoon early on. Normally, I would say that actually isn't as big of an advantage as you would assume, because if I can predict the cocoon, I will pre-cleanse you all day, son. But there is no cleanse.
Yeah, exactly.
There is no opportunity to be able
cleanse.
to make that a thing. So, then, yes, you are right. I feel like this is suddenly going to make sure that Snitch is a lot more, you know, when he uses his spells might matter more than where he ends up going with them.
And that is because Snitch generally in the team fights will be the one who places Zalia in the perfect place for Peekaboo and likely Emerald Wind.
But what that does mean even more so, if that is the thought process, now imagine a world where Dignitas isn't the one choosing the team fight. If Brightwing has to make a transition for any reason to not fully capitalize and utilize on the Peekaboo, does this team fight even look close?
Yeah, and Zalia is the only global for Team Dignitas.
So you can expect them to be in the mismatch versus the Dahaka. So, and it's a losing lane for the Brightwing, which debatably should enforce a faster teleport on top of it. To be honest, now the longer we're thinking about this, the more I feel like Ballistics got the upper hand of that. But I started out thinking that, and it's I've kind of been wishy-washy with it.
It's been a roller coaster of emotions here at the Gold Club World Championship. But we have to remember, too, that Ballistics willingly picked the Zeratul into that Brightwing. So they still were okay with picking it there as the final choice. It took a while. They considered the options, but in the end still felt like they could play around that. And it might come down to the fact that the global of Team Dignitas, at the very least, she'd have to come in really early for any curse fights or tribute fights so that she could build that back up with hypership so that she'd have it for the team fight.
And we know this is, like you said, the very first game we've gotten to see Zalia go over to that Brightwing, and I've talked about some of the squishy problems of her. I wonder if we're going to see maybe some uncharacteristic play coming from him in terms of struggling on keeping himself alive, just because I talked about when you move over to the support role, it seems like the very first problem you see is keeping yourself alive or keeping your team alive. And Brightwing is one of the hardest to understand how to make how to properly use her tools. And if you're really depending on being Peekaboo effective throughout this game and all that pressure on Azalea, I can see suddenly a bad teleport for the better of the Peekaboo, but then suddenly no ice block keeping himself alive. And so I'm just saying, keeping a close eye on Azalea here in this game and how he can perform against this pressure.
Ballistics got their Giants, but the rotations from Dignitas were so fast, they zoned away Dahaka from being able to get back into lane, which slowed him down getting up to the top, slowed everyone else from being able to get into position, and nets Team Dignitas the first tribute of this game on their way to 3 for the curse. It is still, oh, Hooligans diving in. A lot of damage there. They'll take out a Nubarek for first blood.
Really great synergy when it comes to not only the initiation, but more importantly, the follow-up crowd control. Snitch does have a swift strike, sees himself in SC. Gonna dash on out there, but the first blood for Ballistics, that's very good. The fact that they were able to get that kill and it didn't even take them a Zeratul in that type of situation, just a bit too far out there for Dignitas on bottom.
Yeah, it was important for Ballistics to make sure to catch up, given that Team Dignitas had been able to keep people soaking for so long. This is a very deep stock in. Grabs a JPL, but immediate polymorph stops that.
This is going to be a huge advantage for Ballistics if they pick up this, and it looks like nobody on Dignitas can stop it. Zayli has already shown his teleport. He's not going to make it to that top shrine whatsoever, and SC should know this, but he's going to give it up for free. I thought immediately that would be a heavy collapse in rotation, but instead Ballistics is trying to capitalize not so much on the objective itself, taking maybe a note out of what we see from Fnatic a little bit more and concentrating more on not so much the tributes themselves, but the structural advantage they can get elsewhere on the map.
It's the rush to 10. But they're a long way away from that. They haven't been able to delay at either of the tributes.
Yeah,
so they're so far back.
It is one of those situations where it's like, yeah, you can make the argument that you are trying to win that race, but it is very different in the fact that most of those teams, because the tribute fights can last so long, sometimes you don't even need to get the siege damage to get this big of an experience advantage. So Ballistics, yes, eking ahead over Dignitas, but by no means is it leaping like they could be possibly here over that first 2 tribute phases.
Maybe it was 2. I mean, the first one was definitely just positionally unfortunate for them that they didn't really have Dahaka in place. They couldn't safely stop that. Maybe they felt the same in that last one too, but it does put them in a really sticky situation that some kills would certainly help with. But not getting that. They're getting some mercenary camps out on the board, trying to pressure out the lanes, making sure that they can contest the next one and not give Team Dignitas a curse.
Tribute will spawn in favor of positioning for Ballistics. This is the window of opportunity to try and capitalize on the global mismatch and that stalling tactic, the race to 10 we've been talking about. So much so, Dig might not even kind of feign interest towards this tribute. Zayli is not making much happen in transition, and SC and Snitch just having some fun there to the top lane, so Dig will give it up.
I could watch that Genji Zeratul 1v1 all day. That's a bit of a premonition of things to come as Ballistics start on the boss using that Hungering Arrow Vala, but it's spotted by Team Dignitas. Still have the Globals versus the Globals in the bottom lane.
I just love watching, you know, hyper, like Q-build Vala in modern day. It feels like it plays like old school, like Tyrannus would, right? Where you're like, can we sneak this 3-man boss? And you just kind of start it and you're like, are they going to let this happen? And then immediately you're like, oh no. And then you're like, okay, we don't want anything to do with this. We're going to back out.
Never mind. We'll just get 10 instead.
With the heroics, is there anything wild in terms of pickups? No, everybody's sticking to the norm. The only maybe variation you could say would be Strafe versus the Rain. But even then, Rain of Vengeance becoming very popular in this tournament.
Yeah, and with all the dive, it's going to help Vala try to make sure that she can keep herself alive if the dive comes in. Maybe even a way of, if she can, spotting out, dropping it on one that Eldruin is to stop a Sanctification.
Or Emerald Wind. Emerald Wind has a very heavy tell on the animation itself. This curse point for Dig. Keep in mind, the peekaboo point is very impactful. There's going to be Snitch going in with the Dragon Blade. He got Zalia and the reveal. Sound Barrier is going to be used. Hits 3 members of Ballistics. Very lackluster. Here's the Cocoon reveal, but immediate Sanctification drop. 2 members of Ballistics are just removed from this world, and Dig is going to go ahead and claim not only a 3rd kill there on to Zhongha, but a 3rd tribute for themselves.
Absolute stunning decision-making from Team Dignitas there. They had the Cocoon. They zoned people away so far that they couldn't bust anyone out, and then turned on a dime, got down, Sanctification, the Emerald Wind, just to isolate to be sure, and got those kills before Ballistics could even blink. That allows Team Dignitas to take the boss before getting the tribute, so they can really pack a punch with this curse.
So well done when it came to the peekaboo point and that initiation, the Cocoon reveal. That was all we were talking about in that kind of intricacies of this team fight. Ballistics hits the Stormbolt and the isolation onto Snitch. They got themselves a kill, even though the boss is sieging down below. This is a huge, huge setback for Team Dignitas. They just found themselves in a position to potentially make this game a level and a half, 2-level advantage with a huge structure advantage in their favor, and now they find themselves dead even. That was so greedy, but more importantly, so well capitalized on by Ballistics. And now this game is flat even. I can't believe it.
Yeah, there is...
Oh.
It's just impossible to try to convey
how big that was.
Yeah, and how Team Dignitas felt like it was so in the bag that they had a curse and a boss.
I mean, I said it.
SC cleared out the boss no problem.
I mean, it is a 6-7 minute boss. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, bosses...
But
I cannot say how overhyped they are, but
you need it with the curse.
With the curse.
With the curse.
And they didn't double cap, they didn't double boss, and then all it was enough was to focus onto the boss, get the stall out there. Ballistics is, at this point, how do they lose? With the amazing plays that they had into the last game? We'll find out. This is going to be a breaking point as both teams sitting at that curse point, rounding near that 13 talent tier. Dignitas quite a bit ahead in that area, but not so much to where you can expect that. And there's the peekaboo use.
Drag, peekaboo all the way back. SC it doesn't matter, he revealed himself anyway, putting on some damage on JPL thanks to the drag and the free targeting system from Jungha there.
But there
Drags another, but the poly was great.
There just shouldn't be an opportunity for the reveal onto SC to happen unless he volunteers to do so now. Very interesting that he's going to be the man starting this channel. He's going to do so, baiting them into the choke. There's the cocoon. Very
choked as Dignitas comes on through. Void Prison stops, and there's the sound barrier, too, that will give them a little bit of shielding as they come out of that Void Prison. The isolation good on JPL. It forces the Emerald Wind to stop the onslaught of Ballistics.
But Sanctification just came off cooldown there for Wubby.
Yeah, and they're still go for the throat. Somebody could get taken out here very fast. There's the Sanctification. Ballistics are split. Magi gets back while riding away to safety, and Jungha lives to the poly.
All the members of Ballistics are so low in health. I'm surprised that they're willing to even contest this tribute. It seems very much like it is going to be Team Dignitas's. Another peekaboo after that teleport from Zalia. So this tribute will go over to Dignitas. But how much can they make happen with it? We don't see, you know, that boss like maybe they should have had a little bit earlier with that first curse opportunity, but they have to open up this map.
Yeah, the best thing for Ballistics is that they identified that with sound barrier down, they did force the Sanctification, but it was still way too scary for them to stay for that fight. So they keep every single person alive to defend versus this curse, and that limits the amount of damage, especially if they get the kill here.
Nice, amazing, amazing capitalization on any slight mistake that we see out of Dignitas, and that is back-to-back there on to Snitch, catching him out on the Genji. He's got to be second-guessing his positioning, but that death timer is now going to make it to where Dignitas can do essentially nothing with this curse. And Gilly, keep in mind, imagine what this game would have looked like if just that first curse had been picked up in that manner early on. It is all because Ballistics understands what Dignitas is trying to, how much they can get out of the situation and when it's a little bit too far. And twice in a row, Dignitas gets too much, and Ballistics says, nah. That's going to lead to them picking up a boss here as the curse is rounded out. No experience really going to be lost into those side lanes, and Ballistics is now the team that's one tribute away.
You can see why Ballistics has such a high emphasis in draft for Dahaka. Obviously, he's one of the higher picked heroes in this event, but Jungha's Dahaka play is superb. He's been playing this hero for so long. It's who he often has to 1v1 versus Rich against, so you can guess that it's pretty darn good, and he is putting on a good case of why they prioritize it so highly.
So though things maybe haven't been looking too hot for Dignitas, they haven't looked bad, but are they getting, again, as much out of those situations that they could be? There is a silver lining down the road, and that is their boss control post-16. Though Void and Sanks, you can argue, are going to be kind of nullifying one another over that, Holy Ground will not be. The frequency of that, thanks to the level 4 with Heroic Reforging, means that there's going to be multiple zones of not being able to capitalize on a boss if it comes down to that. Also, you have the Emerald Wind out of Brightwing. So Dignitas has this kind of, you know, panic button of starting a boss in this game, but they need to find a way to time that around to where, you know, Ballistics doesn't have a big enough talent tier advantage or structural advantage in some way, shape, or form, and I just am a little bit concerned that that opportunity may not exist, knowing they have two tributes already.
Yeah, there is the boss down at the bottom, and Dignitas are trying to force the fight before Ballistics has 16. Eldruin down there as Wubby can stalk around and try to trap some of the members of Ballistics, but it's just the front line there. Cocoon goes, Team Dignitas get what they want. They're going to get a fight before Ballistics can get 16.
SC got revealed, and that's going to force him to void. Snitch goes in, but it's a little bit too far. The punishment once more. That drag from Jungha is like a homing missile onto Snitch. It locks him down. Sound barrier is going to be used.
Emerald One was stopped.
Sanctification is there.
Sanctification will get Brightwing out after the ice block. Vala falls. They're turning this. They take out Lucio and Vala. Team Dignitas remains in this fight.
Zalia's Emerald Wind is going to push back Ballistics even to a worse position here. They are now on to full retreat. I can't imagine a world where Ballistics is going to try and take this tribute, but they may in order to stop the bleeding. SC out of mana.
Hooligan's coming back in. The Stormbolt hits.
On to Wubby. Not too much mana left into his mana pool either. Dahaka's actually making the transition. There we see the teleport. Peekaboo is going to get the reveal onto SC. Wubby keeping himself alive. And no, is Jungha going to capture?
Oh. Poik saved the day, but yeah, this is not a capture
Thank
that Ballistics wants.
Heavens. Can you imagine if Ballistics captured that tribute? That would have just set all of the capitalization on mistakes on the side of Team Dignitas just the opposite direction. Dig uses the death timer advantage that they have had to make sure that they get themselves a boss. That's going to force a response out of Ballistics. That response seems to be tribute capturing. It's going to set down the curse.
SC will be back in 5 seconds as the boss starts heading down the bottom lane. Curse is here for Ballistics, but because there's no fort in the bottom, at least Ballistics did get the Giants here to help out, but it is definitely limiting what Ballistics would like to be doing with these 3 tributes.
I think it's if it's not so limiting in this case, which I would agree, you know, but I feel like for some at home maybe disagree, it's going to be limiting when it comes to win conditions over the next few minutes. More importantly so because this is going to be a sacrifice of the 3 tributes. They haven't opened up many structures onto the map. I mean, this is really going to be the second fort we see picked up for them. But I'm talking about those bosses. This is now the first time that we're going to see a boss team fight option that's only onto the top boss available. That's going to be the next to spawn. But Dignitas has the Holy Ground now. That kind of trade-off between the Emerald Wind, the Holy Ground. Ice Block is here for Brightwing to make sure that she can get that Emerald Wind off more successfully. I just would have liked to see maybe a bit more patience, in particular on curses for Ballistics because of their lack of boss control over Dig. But they have SC on Zeratul. Zeratul can be that single-handed playmaker in almost every situation.
The nice thing for Ballistics, though, is at least they had Jungha with the Dahaka, and having the curse, they did clear out the boss. They didn't lose the keep. So for that respect, they are basically setting this game to even, except that Dignitas still has the experience advantage because they were able to just soak up all of the experience off of that curse, and Ballistics had a little less sieging power, but they didn't have to keep Vala there to defend. They could do that with Jungha and then still take out the 1 fort in the mid. So there's only 1 fort left for Dignitas.
I love the Zeratul just casually kind of roaming the map, being able to take over the eye there, but Dignitas zones off. And here's that top boss. Who's the one to start it, and how is it going to unfold? I feel like it is more in the hands of Dignitas to force this and identify this window than it is that of Ballistics. Even though Dignitas is the one winning in experience, it's not enough to argue that you can get that team fight in that type of situation in those tense of moments here. So much so that I would like to see them maybe wait for the second tribute, gauge if it's top or bottom. If it's bottom, go ahead and start it up. If it's top, understand that you're probably going to have to take yourself that fight.
Very safe positioning from all of Team Dignitas. Making sure they're still soaking, but not crossing that halfway line in the slightest. Brightwing is just sitting at the keep even, making sure that no Dahaka, Zeratul shenanigans all of a sudden show up and they lose this crucial factor to their team composition.
Jungha is going to go ahead and force up this wave. Yeah. Typically just means that they're going to try and pressure somewhere else on the map, and I would assume that'd be towards top, as that is where everybody is. SC teleports out after Snitch is going to get the track down. They're trying to force this Void. The Cocoon is there, and they got the Void on top of it. A double win here for Dignitas.
That's really good. Magi's in position trying to Sound Barrier after this. The Holy Grunt separates him from it, but he still does get the shield. Polly's there. Rain of Vengeance, though.
As he makes it out.
He makes it out, but the rest of Ballistics are going right back in. Brightwing is in a heap of trouble using the Ice Block and falls after the fact as he still hoping that he can chase somebody down there, has to blink away, and in that amount of time, Dignitas takes out Vala. Now Dragon Blade brings down Zeratul.
Poik, though, is in a bad spot as Hooligan goes in with the Dwarf Toss, hits himself the Stormbolt, and locks down another 2 for 2 here between these teams. But as you can see, Dignitas far behind when it comes to those health bars. Hooligan unable to hit that Stormbolt, and now Snitch turns it around to cost him his life. Avatar is forced to be popped. And this is now a huge advantage for Ballistics. We'll be able to stealth his way out here. But the problem is the boss control capabilities here for Ballistics. I say that, but now looking at who's left, not a single ounce of damage. So can they, boss?
Not with a Murden Lucio Dahaka, I wouldn't think.
You're saying that's not a boss racing composition,
not
those three?
so much. Hate to break it to you, but Lucio's auto attack damage was, in fact, hit by the 5% reduction.
25 to 24. Rip in pieces, 1 damage.
Dignitas knows that they're pretty safe there, gets the Giants just in case, but also to get some pressure. Loved how patient Dignitas were too right before that fight, just waiting with that bruiser camp that they captured until Ballistics was forced to defend versus that, and then using the 2 in the top lane to take out that 4 in the top. It did get them closer, and they got 20 faster.
So even though it seemed like that was an even fight, I would argue this is actually now a lot more beneficial for Ballistics. The fact that they waited out the whole top boss control disadvantage situation to where Dignitas is going to start their own boss only if Ballistics identified that and started their boss at the exact same time, which that is anything but the case. They're actually now showing interest in towards Dignitas, though 20 is not their own. Dignitas is taking this very, very slowly, but Ballistics is moving way too slow to be able to stop this.
Yeah, JPL was watching so far ahead. He uses the Cocoon, which forces Ballistics to go up there instead. Boss for free for Team Dignitas, just as Ballistics hits 20.
Now they have to force behind the boss. They're going to try and take the fight away from it. They need to stay with this boss because they've forced the Void onto everything. It's a winning trade for Dignitas. But the minute they walk away from that, you know Ballistics want to try and capitalize and force it. So cleverly done here from Dignitas. I cannot say how much praise I have for them bodying with that boss and making sure that they cannot get voided.
Yeah, that giant camp pressure in the top lane too,
They
so
split.
things going really well for Dignitas. 3-man burrow charge from JPL.
Ballistics is going to try and push back. There's the peekaboo. 5-man void forces the sanctification on the isolated. Now Jongha in the backline. A bit of miscommunication. They're actually voided and drop in time to get the value out of the 20, and now the teamfight is completely lost here for Ballistics on full retreat.
Yeah, Sound Barrier has already been used too, and Hooligan can't get out of this. Look at the stun lock now that a new Baraka has rewind. He cannot catch a break. Meanwhile, Poik goes in, takes out Vala, nearly brings down Magi too. The boss has almost gone down. The keep is gone.
Magi's baiting them, and he keeps himself alive. We see the teleport from Zalia, the polymorph immediately after, and it looks like now with 2 members of Ballistics dying, the Emerald win and continuous wins locking down Hooligan. It is Team Dignitas taking out Ballistics on Cursed Hollow and sending us to a game number 5.
The control of Hooligan, he could not come in and save Vala. SCSC life was forfeit, and the whole time Hooligan was just walking back. It felt like he was taking 1 step back for every 2 steps forward towards his base. That's how much lockdown was there. Control over Hooligan in the end. Everything so well executed from Dignitas from that boss onward, staying with the boss, making sure that nobody was isolated and available to get the kill for SC.
Though there was amazing plays from both sides, I'm still sitting there thinking about that last boss situation. It seemed like everything from the thought process and decision-making out of Ballistics for the last 2 minutes was understanding, okay, this curse is going to be taken as a way to stop the situation we've found ourselves in for now, and then whenever we have to concern that bottom boss, then find a way to make sure that you can deal with your own up on top. But when it came to the 9 seconds out when we saw Dig making the transition and then nobody on Ballistics showed interest, I feel like that's understandable because they didn't have the 20. But no one was up at their own boss. It's not like Dignitas was poking around trying to threaten them off. It was straight up Dig going, yeah, that sucks. We spawn, but we need to go take our own boss in this situation. Just very uncharacteristic, out of Ballistics.
Yeah, it was like nobody rotated down fast enough even. Like you would think
nobody rotated.
Yeah, you would think that if they weren't going to be getting theirs, it's because they were heavily focused on making sure that they at least were stopping Dig from getting theirs. But again, versus Emerald Wind and Sanctification, is that really something you want to do? Poik getting his MVP. Well deserved, I think, getting that Vala kill on SDE.
Was the thing to be able to make sure it was the beginning of the end there.
Yeah.
Very well done from Poik, rookie of Team Dignitas. I know Wubby is too, but in a very different manner. And when we look at Wubby's experience in the past, you know, I look at him as he's the new guy on the squad.
Yeah, especially I would say that there is a lot more pressure on Poik on
Absolutely.
the team than Wubby. Wubby's been on Team Dignitas before. He's played with Snitch and JPL before. And Poik comes in. He was new to HGC the whole entire thing, right?
Yeah.
Halfway through the year, going in with Zealots through the Crucible. And then to, like, get this level up of suddenly being on a team with the prestige in Heroes of the Storm as Dignitas. It's impressive that he had, like, one nervous game, and then from then on, not nervous Poik, you know?
I kind of, yeah, I kind of look at him as a little bit of like the accelerated version of Goku in North America, right? Like to come in, yeah, Goku hung out for about, like, I feel like a year before he had that same transition of like the breakthrough moment for him and his performance. But when doing so, you know, relative to the rest of North America, very much a standout player for them. And Poik was there for Dignitas in the last game. Both games we have seen Ballistics crumble. It seems like it is more a late-game decision-making, mid-game decision-making thing more than it is getting out-team fought. So I can't help but wonder, like, how does that impact a game number 5? Does it make it easier for them? Does it make it more difficult? Not quite sure.
Yeah, the one thing that I will say is that Ballistics has the option to go back to first pick, and that did work out well for them before. We are going to go to a break. When we come back, the epic conclusion of this best of 5 between Ballistics and Team Dignitas.